Whoa, where is my life? Oh, I did it again. Just give me a minute there, everyone. I'm like, what happened to my video? I'm on a laptop. So at night when I work and I want to do work on my laptop, I take my camera off and then I forget. So, hi, this is Anna Imagination with The Healing Garden, and welcome to Shifting Perspectives. If you are new to my channel, I am a philosopher, psychologist, sociologist of 30 years. Okay, so today I'm focusing on an old dilemma I have had for a very long time, and one that just keeps resurfacing. Friends. So we're going to go over this. Every adult has this problem, I think. Why is it so hard to make friendships as adults? And my I of I is stable. Woohoo! My U of I is stable. Woohoo! That's what I call progress. Now I'm looking at the they of I. So, just a quick recap in case you're new to this. We've got our philosopher's compass, this gorgeous triangle. And we have this is the three parts in philosophy. This is the three parts of the identity, the three parts that make up a person's identity. That is the self-love. It is your point of reference, your relatives, your family, or your partner or your spouse. And then you have your community, your friends, and the people who basically value you and welcome you in. When these three powers combine, you have stability. And each one of them has a massive purpose. The I of I's purpose is to define the self, and that's all your self-love. That's solid. Your point of relativity is that mirror that shows you or reminds you, grounds you to your own ethics. It's literally like a grounding rod to you. So here's you, and you can go off and do your thing, and you can collect people's perspectives. And that's junk. That's noise that gets into your own perspective. It's great to look at a perspective and go, ooh, but to actually put it into your own perspective does a lot to take away from you, and it contaminates it. This is where it causes a lot of problems, which I've gotten into in the past. So to kind of cleanse your own perspective, that's where the U of I comes in, where you go back to your partner or you reground yourself, you go back to your genie bottle or your cocoon. And that basically cleanses and recalibrates you to, oh yeah, these are my ethics. So that's what the U of I is for. So the they of I, this is the first time I've sat down and really established what is the they of I. And I can definitely feel its reinforcement. Definitely reinforcement. It almost feels like they are your cheerleading team. They value you. And this is where it really comes back. These are the people who value you. It's your resources. It's almost as if I've collected a pool of perspectives so that when I want to get another opinion or I want to establish something or expand myself or grow, that's not something I can do with my point of my U of I. With a U of I, that's your partner. That's a let's ground me back into reality. But the they of I is more of a let's grow me. So it's almost like you have a grounding point and a growing point. That's exactly it. That is exactly what it feels like. It's like it's a point of growth and you have a point of grounding. So, and I've noticed this back and forth where it's toggling. So I'll be with my partner and I'll feel solid and stable and solidified. But then I'll feel this urge to grow and I'll go to seek it out. But right now it's absent. I don't have one. So I'm working on building this point of growth. And it's vital that this point of growth is almost like it's my future, whereas my grounding point is my present and I am my past. So I am built up of all the things that I have loved and all the places I've been and all the things that I've accumulated that make me me. And the grounding, the point of relativity, the U of I, is a constant, solid reminder of this is who you are. This is where you belong. And it's definitely a belonging. It feels like home. So that's the U of I. Now, a person who has basically it's your ethical compass, it's your moral compass to remind you where it is you belong, so that if you do get off stray when you're with the they of I, you can always come back to the grounding and go, okay, thank you for reminding me what's important to me. And that's really it. This is why during the holidays we go back to relatives. The problem is if you have a toxic relative, you going back to your relatives is a trauma. It's not comforting, it's not grounding. If you are not on the same ethical path as your family, it's not going to work for you, which is why so many people divorce families, move away, and find a chosen family. And this is why. And then the toxic family does a whole lot of abusing to the you of or to the I of I, going, well, how dare you, we're your family. Blood is thicker than water. They're misquoting that, completely turning it on its actual meaning. But they throw this. There's guilting, there's gaslighting. And so a lot of people suffer through the holidays, pulling themselves back to their roots, going back home for the holidays, and they're miserable. It's like one of the most common things that we see, especially at this time of the year, where people are just, oh, my family's making me go back and I don't want to. Don't go back. You owe them nothing. This is something I'm huge on. When you have a parent and they decide to have offspring, I don't like to call that a child, because child as just means unripened adult. The opposite of parent is creation, which is why in the book Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster is actually referred to as Frankenstein's creation. Is because a parent gives birth to a creation. So when you decide to have a creation, it's equivalent to artwork. You don't expect the artwork to owe you. And this is a huge problem that parents basically lord over their children. Toxic parents lord this over their children, where you owe them. I had you, I gave you life. Now you owe me. Let's stop for a minute and look at the word give. Because when you give somebody, there is no debt to be repaid. And a lot of toxic parents will say this: I gave you life, you owe me. Don't you love me? I'm your mother. That kind of manipulation is really like, cut that person out, mother or not. Like, seriously, what that's doing is the parent has taken the role not as a nurturer, but as a predator. This is really a big problem with toxic parents, is when you have a parent that takes the role of a predator instead of a nurturer. They will say things like the guilt tripping, the gaslighting, the I have given this gift to you, and now you are indebted eternally to me as a slave. So it's almost like you want to come back and say, so did you breed a slave? Like, what is the arrangement here? It's very confusing. So there's this point of our healing. It's almost predictable when you get to around the fifth and sixth perspective, where you just say, I'm done. And you cut off your family and you just go and you find a heart family, a chosen family. And then you just become estranged. Don't feel bad about that. Do not. It is up to each individual to make sure that that grounding point, that you of I, is something that you can ethically relate to keep you healthy. And which is why when you go back to the holidays, it turns into a shit show. The last time I went back for the holidays, I ended up in a full panic attack with a massive just depression breakdown. It was the last time, and I told them then, I'm like, I'm not coming back. There's just too much trauma. These people are not anything I can relate to. So I have an established relatable point now. And as soon as I accepted that process is hard. I'm going to tell you right now, finding somebody who actually fits your ethical goal. Let it be somebody, even fictitious, or somebody who's an idol. We do this with idols a lot, where we take someone of the past who we idolize and we put them in this place. Do so. A therapist, actually, this is what the therapist is when you have somebody who goes into therapy, finally, the therapist actually becomes this temporarily. So that you have, which is why we go to therapy the next week and we're like, this is what happened. And the therapist corrects your perspective and aligns you. It's because the therapist is acting as the you of I. So choosing an idol, don't do this process. Absolutely do it. And don't feel guilty about doing this. This is so healthy for you. So deciding that you need a new you of I, a new point of relativity or ethical compass, is exactly a good chunk of healing. So that when you finally get to this point and you solidify somebody in this role, there's a process. There's overcoming the guilt, overcoming the, oh, but it's my family. And then we have a lot of toxic beliefs in our culture that tells us things like, you shouldn't be so dependent upon people, which is true. And there's a lot of confusing codependency. Oh my God, is there? There's a lot of confusing codependency with, I'm trying to figure this out. Give me just a minute. It's like, this is exactly something I'm working on right now, so I'll just go through it. It's black and white extremes. You have codependency and hyperindependence. There you go. There it is. Codependency and hyperindependence. Neither one of these is good. These are both toxic. These are both bad. You want to be in that middle zone. That's that neutral zone. That's the sweet spot. It's a balance of both. So there's codependency. And then you've got a lot of people who are screaming, oh, codependence is bad. You should be independent. You should be. So we swing the absolute opposite extreme, which is exactly what humans do. So this is where you see a lot of people, oh, well, now I'm totally independent. I'm radical self-reliance. There you go. That's it. Radical self-reliance. So you go from codependent to radical self-reliance. And the burner community is huge on this because that is actually part of their ethical code is radical self-reliance. And then they create an entire gifting community where everyone is required to help everybody else. So let's talk about that. This is a fantastic example because in the burner community, you see that radical self-reliance. Oh, but let's gift and create this massive gifting commerce exchange so that we all rely on each other to pool our resources. Now, to be blunt, that's actually correct. That's very healthy. That's what it's supposed to be. But it's not radical self-reliance then. So this is an example of them using the wrong term. So in the ethical code, they're boasting radical self-reliance, but they're not. They're using the wrong word, which is where there's the confusion coming in. So no, you don't want codependency, but you don't want radical self-reliance either. You must get to that in-between point where you accept your own limitations, you accept responsibility and your own resourcefulness, and you accept your own weaknesses and limitations for that moment when you finally say, okay, I need help. And this is where that point of that you of I steps in and solidifies and gives you that. More so when you have this they of I that comes in this community and friendships. So now you have your you of I, you have your I of I, you go through the healing process of rejecting your family and re-establishing your own new ethical code. And once you get that new grounding right in place, you're really set, you're solid. Can the two of you exist side by side interdependently? Yes, absolutely. Does the community help? Absolutely. There is a reason why we gravitate toward community. So here's where I am now in my own healing, where I'm going, all right, I'm ready to build this community. Now, the community that I have available to me is not a healthy community. And it looks like A, and it calls itself friend. But when you start pulling back the logical layers, none of that is actually taking place. And now I'm getting cognitive dissonance because the word friend is present. And that tells me, oh, friend means X. And that's not what's happening at all. Friend is somebody who, hey, I'm having a party. I want you to be there. This isn't happening. Friend is, hey, I had a party and I noticed you weren't there. Is everything okay? That's not happening. This is more of a, I have a party, here it is, and they don't really care who shows up. They really don't. They're kind of having their own party for themselves as if to boost their own ego, and they really don't give a shit who shows up. They've thrown money into it. They've thrown stuff into it. People have shown up, and they kind of don't care. So it's, and then they say friends. So you get in there, and it falls short. It feels flat. You're not connecting with anyone. You're going through the motions. Now, in New York City, you can go to literally 3 or 4 of these a night, back to back to back, and still walk away feeling flat, depressed, like you didn't have a good time. And it's a big why. Where's this coming from? What exactly is it that we're looking for? And before you go out looking, this is where you have to do this with yourself. You have to do this with your partner. Whenever you do anything like this, it's explorative. It's as if you are an explorer. And you have to sample the buffet in order to determine all the likes and dislikes that you want and don't want. And friendship is no different. It's like you have to try a variation of a flavor of friendships to determine what exactly you do want out of the friendship. Now, until this unknown is defined, you're not going to be able to start building. And the reason why is because you can't build what you don't know. You can't ask the universe for what you don't know. So you have to define it. It's not something that's just going to fall together. Now, as children, we think, oh, children can just make friends. But are they really friends? Really, how many of us actually have these people that's still around us? That's probably a lot still to ask for because people grow and they grow at different paces. And as we grow, people get left behind. This is the thing we never talk about because it's one of those things where we subconsciously know. Instinctively we know it, but consciously no one knows about this. So let's put some names on this. When you go through the 12 stages of growth, everyone has a different rate of growth. Now, we like to categorize these growth rates by age and by grade level. And then after age and grade, they get created and broken down by milestones in life. College students go over there, and 9-to-5 job workers who never went to college, they go over there. People who get married and settle down, they go over there. Single people are kind of like floating all over the place trying to figure shit out. Everyone's trying to figure shit out. What you're really doing is you are walking through the 12 stages of growth. And a lot of people hit stage 4 and they're done. And that's where you see the women settle down, get married, have kids, and they never do anything else with their life. You have somebody who gets to stage 5 and they're like, I want to be a business owner. I want to pursue the career. Welcome to stage 5. They are career pursuers. And then you have people who want something more. They want to make a difference in the world. Well, those are stage 6s. Now, some people get stalled out at stage 2 or stage 3. Some people never leave their hometown. These are all the different stages of growth. The problem is not really a problem. This is the way life is an individual almost always evolves faster than the previous generation, which is why we're getting smarter, which is why we're growing, which is why we're evolving, which is why the millennials are stage 5s, whereas the baby boomers are stage 4s or stage 3s. So what's going on is basically the further you grow, the greater these gaps between the different perspectives occurs. So your parents might be a 3 or a 4, but you get to a 4 or 5, and then your parents start to call you names because you're different. And then you grow a little bit further, and then they really become abusive, or they really become, oh, I don't understand you anymore, you're crazy. And that's just where they start to label you. You grow more, and you can only grow 3 perspectives or more before you completely lose communication with someone. It's not possible. It is not possible to have a relationship with someone with a different perspective gap and be able to relate to them. This is really, it is the ratio of perspective gap equals relatability. And once we reach that point of, okay, we've exceeded 3 or more perspective gaps, you're done. There is no way you can be relatable. You become a peer. Not a peer. That's when you become more advanced or left behind or misunderstood. There's now that perspective gap. And when we refer to peer, we are referring to somebody who's on our same perspective growth. So when you're looking for friends, when you're looking for a partner, oh God, this is so huge. This is it. Like, this is it right here. It is common for us to find partners who all wear the same mask, perspective 4. So we'll fall in love with someone wearing a perspective 4 mask. We're wearing a perspective 4 mask. 3 months later, the masks come off, and boom, you've got a perspective 6 married to a perspective 2. This happens all the time. This is why divorce happens, is because you are a perspective 6 and you've married a perspective 2 or a 3. And you don't know it until the masks come off. The question is, how long can you keep the mask on? 7 years is about it. Sometimes 20, depending upon how much of a good mask wearer you are. If you grow, if your partner grows, if the stages of growth continue, they're going to hide that from you because it's not safe to grow. That is a lesson we all learn through. Most of us learn through abuse, is it's not safe to grow. So as we grow and change, we hide the change from our partners. What you're really doing is advancing through the stages of growth. So suddenly 20 years, 7 years down the road, you get to this point where you're now at perspective 5 or 6. You're wanting a completely different life because you've evolved and your partner hasn't. And suddenly the masks come off. You can't stand the lies anymore. You can't stand the cognitive dissonance. And you say, I've had enough. What's going on? I'm not happy. And they're blindsided going, I don't understand. We had a perfect marriage. No, you didn't. There were masks being worn. And this is so common where you find out that your husband is a 3 and you're a 6. Or your daughter is now a 7 or a 6 and you're still stuck at 2. And because that perspective gap is so large, you're no longer relatable. And now you're off talking about crystals and chakras, and they're sitting here trying to figure out what's on Netflix that night. Completely different, unrelatable, and then the marriage falls apart. So why it's why when you decide to finally go out and seek out a partner, not wearing masks and being honest about which perspective of growth you are actually at and knowing where your partner is so vital to its success. So once you figure this out, this is the other thing is you can get to a point where you grow and then you look at your partner and say, okay, well, this is the perspective I'm at. Now, where are you? Now, your partner might grow and meet up with you. Your partner, surprisingly, might be actually ahead of you and you're growing toward them, or they might be, I prefer my comfort zone and this is where I'm going to stay. And that's where, okay, we need to dissolve this. So when it comes to friendships and the they of they, it's almost as if you are reinforcing, literally reinforcing everything. You're reinforcing your growth. It's like you're saying, I want to grow, but I need the right people in place in order to have this happen. It's like you're creating a cocktail or a soup, something where you are wanting to be pushed and challenged, pushed out of your comfort zone. And that's really it. It's almost as if you have a growth zone. Oh, that's exactly it. And you have a comfort zone. So your partner is your comfort zone and your friends would be your growth zone. You know, I had a friendship. She turned out to be a narcissist for 17 years, but she very much had me in the growth zone. And it got to a point where I grew and then I outgrew her, and that's when it fell apart. But really, it's almost as if your community and your friendships are your growth zone, whereas you have your comfort zone with your partner. So you go into your growth zone. This is where you mingle, you have friendships, you get new perspectives, you cherry pick, okay, this is exactly where I want to be. And this is work. This is mental work. But it's work that we're all doing it, but we don't realize we're doing it. It's absolutely void of any conscious awareness, which I think is why we're all struggling with it, is because we're doing it, it's instinctive, and we're clueless about the machinations of what's happening. So going into it more mindfully, it's a what lessons do you want to learn? Where do you want to grow to? So it's almost as if your friendship group, oh, this makes so much sense, has to be at a higher perspective than you, not too high. Let's say, okay, let's say you're a perspective 5. So you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you would have 5s and 6s, and maybe even 7s, 5, 6, and 7 inside your community. And then you're a 5, your partner would be a 5 or a 6. So now you've got this fantastic place where you can relax, you can be understood with on a perspective level with your partner, and then you can go into this community and you can challenge yourself with 6s and 7s, and you can have that debate, you can grow and you can expand, you can push yourself. And then it's like you've gone harvesting and you've collected all of these different perspectives. Now, without boundaries, we cram those perspectives right into our heads. Don't do that. Don't do that. Use the boundaries. You want to hear a perspective. Okay, this is really vital. You want to hear a perspective without actually internalizing it or integrating it. That is vital to mental health. Another problem that a lot of people aren't aware of is whenever we hear something, this is where gullibility comes from. It's when you hear something and you immediately absorb it and internalize it without filtering whether or not it's something healthy for you. So somebody will call you a name and boom, you'll internalize it. It's gullibility. It's no boundary. So you immediately take that name. There's no filter and it goes right into your learning system. It's hyper learning for It's a hyper learning defense due to trauma. Basically, it's a trauma response is when we hyper learn. This is what a lack of boundaries does is it sets off our hyper learning senses. So we project and internalize on a heightened sense. So we over internalize so that when we're called names, boom, it immediately is internalized. Somebody abuses us, boom, we make it our problem. Somebody says something that may or may not be factual. There's no question we are gullible. We take it all in. So when you listen to other people's perspectives, people who are hyper learning, hypersensitive, no boundaries, and they over internalize will absorb all of that data in. And now you've shifted your perspective way off kilter. Now you've got a lot of cognitive dissonance because all of this data is now contradicting your logical truth, which is now creating a logical fallacy, which is causing cognitive dissonance. And now you have emotional pain. So you go back to your partner, the full moon comes out and it cleanses all of that. You realign, you get your perspective back, you understand who you are, you reground, recharge, regroup. Now you're ready to go back out. So when you go back out, you want to have your boundaries with you to iron up so you're not internalizing all of this perspective and lessons that you're absorbing. You don't want to absorb the lessons. You want to subjectively listen and hear the lessons without internalizing them. You have to filter them out first. Is this something that's truth for me? Is this something I want? In order to do that, you have to have a solid eye of eye. So if you go into friendships without knowing who you are, you're going to pick up and absorb everything. If you go into a partnership without knowing who you are, you're going to pick up whatever narcissist you find along the way. And which is the problem. So it's why it's so imperative that wherever you are in life, if you have not solidified your eye of eye, if you have not defined who you are and boundaried up, you are just picking up so much. And now you've created an entire social setup, an entire social pyramid based off of your mental illness, your insecurities, your emotional prosthetics, your shortcomings, because you're overcompensating with what you lack by projecting that onto people. Now you've got people who are just there to enable your mental illness because you haven't done the work, which is why we say, oh, you're having a problem with your marriage? Divorce or go do some work. Oh, you're having a problem with this? You really need to go spend some time alone and do some work. Spend time alone is like a death sentence for so many people. Spend time alone means having internal dialogue and sorting out all of the toxic perspectives that are derailing you from your own perspective and regrounding your one solid perspective and your one solid logical truth into a solid whole. That's all it is. And you can't do this with anyone else around you. You must be isolated to pull this off because your boundaries are down. We're over internalizing. We're hyper learning. We're absorbing all of this perspective that isn't our own. And we haven't learned how to filter properly. So once you build up the eye of eye, that falls into place. Now you have boundaries. Now you can be around other people and you can subjectively assess if they're going to be something stable for you or not. So you find your eye of eye, you put your eye of eye in place. You're solid now. You have a point of reference where you can mirror literally that mimicking monkey see, monkey do. So you can remember, oh yeah, that's who I am. So you have your mirror, your U of I, and now you want to put yourself into that growth zone. So what kind of friends? This is really, really where a lot of this just keeps coming back to me. Kind of friends would be somebody who absolutely values you. And that's it right there, time and time again, is somebody who values you, not values what they can get from you. And that's really it. There's a lot of using going around. And the using could be anything of, I want a person here just to make it look like I'm popular. It's almost like the friendships that I've found here in New York City. The communities that are here are 100% based on a popularity. It's the, I want to look popular. It's not even being popular. It's want to appear popular. It's really bizarre. I want to like rip this apart and really dissect it. And I'll go into an event and I can feel that. I can very much feel the wanting to appear popular. And I'll go by that event and I'll be like, oh, that's it. I can feel it. And it's this sudden feeling of, yeah, that's not honest. That's all a bunch of mask wearing and I don't want it. But then you've got people who feel they can't build up. Yeah, they can't build up anything any other way. So they settle for that kind of an appearance because they can't get friends any other way. And you see that a lot where people settle. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's it a lot. People settle for friendships. People do a lot of settling for inadequate friendships. We don't just settle for partners. We settle for friends. We settle for communities because we are so inept at trying to figure out how to develop friendships as adults. It's this massive obstacle. This is my next topic, is pulling apart the friendships and trying to figure out how to adult as friends. And time is a big problem with that. And also, what elements do you want? Oh, this is my favorite topic. What elements do you want? What interests do you want in common with your friendships? That's a huge one. And I'm going to go ahead and cover this in a next video because this is easily going to be another 30 minutes. So I'll end it here, but yeah, I'm ripping apart friendships and the they of I and community today and resources. And there's also different types. Like I'll get into it in the next video, but if you love shit like this, like, subscribe, follow, comment below, and let me know what part of the show resonates with you. And if you want to learn more about me, take a look at the Linktree account. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.